Go hard and fast, but don't add more weekly volume. Like keep that the same. So use the base build to increase your volume, get it up to where you want to train at, and then train at that volume is my best advice, especially for midlifers. But you got to understand, running is not a comfortable thing. I think just learning to accept that and then pushing a little bit to the point where you can accept discomfort, that really is the governor. If you want to get faster, you have to get faster, right? You have to be faster top end, and then that leaves room underneath to establish all of the other paces that you can function at. So you have to kind of focus on that speed if you want to graduate to that next level, that new PB. But in the end, 26 miles is different, and if you want to run 250, you have to be in 245 shape. You know, like to run you need to be 5 minutes faster.
Guys, I sat down with MK, aka Michael Kim, aka Midlife Coach, if coach was spelled with the K. Anyway, he runs a channel on YouTube called AllHeartRC. I'll leave a link in the description. Subscribe to his channel, watch it. He coaches his kids who are all stars. They've run sub-3 marathons. It's an amazing journey to watch. While we're at it, why don't you just go ahead and subscribe to this channel if you can, because every time you do, then Strava will give you 0.01 extra on your runs to cover that tax. Anyway, this conversation is about MK, as he's a 251 marathoner and how he's gotten faster at midlife. So I do hope you enjoy. All right, so today I am talking with legend Michael Kim, aka MK. I refer to him just simply as Professor X. He does lead a team of elite superheroes, whether that's, Psylocke, Wolverine, Banshee. They're out in full force running sub-3 paces across the streets of California. But today I wanted to pick the brain specifically of Prof X, because he is a midlife runner, much like myself, and low-key a very fast runner. So I wanted to talk to him about how he's gotten faster. So MK, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
So let's just get some groundwork set. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I am 49.
All right, sweet. And what are your current PBs, 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon?
Well, I'm pretty slow. My 5K best is around 1840. My 10K best is low 38:20, and my best marathon time is 2:51. But my proudest achievement is probably my 100-mile road time is 16:46. So dipping under 17 hours for that was a big milestone for me.
Ultraman, that's amazing. All
Thank
right,
you.
and at what age did those happen?
They all happened pretty recently, all within the last 5 years or so. Before that, my personal bests were just slightly better. So I've just been progressing because I've been keeping up my running and my fitness.
Okay, awesome. And at what age did running really take off for you?
Well, I did my very first foot race in 2012. I was originally a cyclist, but all of my cycling buddies were all mountain runners. So they twisted my arm and got me to enter into a 100K mountain ultra race, which I can't believe I did, but I finished that thing in 14 and a half hours. But that was my very first race in 2012.
Well, most people, I think, start with a 5K. This man, the legend, starts with 100K. Very nice.
Yeah.
It didn't break you either, huh?
It nearly did. It wasn't the smartest thing that I've ever done in my entire life.
Sweet. And so do you feel that you are still getting fitter? I know that you are training your kids. They are aiming, 2 of them, for a sub 250 at CIM later this year. Are you planning on running that and breaking 250 with them?
That would be epic. I run with my daughter, Evan, because she's 12 and she needs to be supervised. And I typically follow her along the race course with a camera and document her race or all of her races. But this time's a little bit different because she's going to be a bit swifter, a little quicker. So I'm going to do my best to document as much of it and go with her as far as I can. But if she ends up leaving me later in the race, then I will be more than overjoyed and do my best to capture the moment after I cross the finish line.
That's so awesome. And so if anyone who's listening hasn't seen Evan's sub 3 attempt, I'll put the video in the description below or link in the description, something like that. And I'm fumbling over my words, trying to hold down the tears from coming up again because I may have cried when I watched that video. It was pretty awesome. It's pretty epic. Okay, so then, YouTube likes arbitrary amounts of things. Can you find maybe 3 things that have helped you get faster as you've aged?
Oh, well, it's not a secret formula. 1, improving aerobic threshold, improving lactate threshold, and improving VO2 max. That's pretty much it. I think for older runners, sprinkling in some anaerobic work like strides, 150s, 200s, 300 reps with full recovery in between, and focusing on getting super fast and getting fully recovered and focusing on form. It can do wonders for running faster at lower heart rate, but it's a little bit of a risk for more mature runners like myself. So I would say to not be so ambitious in that area and just really focus on the big base of the pyramid and improving that aerobic threshold, improving that lactate threshold, and improving that VO2 max.
Awesome. More mature runners. I like that. I am very mature for my age. So how would one go about building the bottom of that pyramid or that base aerobically?
I think it really depends on where you are in your running journey. If you're just starting out, then just spending time on feet, not really looking at paces, but paying a little bit more attention to RPE or how you feel while you're running, and just trying to spend in that target range of 35 to 40 minutes to start, where you get the biggest bang for your buck as far as aerobic return. And then from there, just building it up. Like once you're able to find a groove and find some level of comfort, just work your way up and build on top of that as far as time on feet. And then once you're past that, work towards developing good paces and trying to get your paces down a little bit further while staying in your aerobic zone. And I think that's the normal progression that people usually go through. But I think a lot of people, especially who have been running for a few years, kind of flatten out and plateau out as far as building up their aerobic threshold, because a lot of runners kind of fall into this hypnotic trance of feeling comfortable, kind of dissociating with discomfort, pushing that or having an aversion to discomfort. But you got to understand, running is not a comfortable thing. Even walking outside when it's a little warm outside is not comfortable, right? I think just learning to accept that and then pushing a little bit to the point where you can accept discomfort and you can run at the higher end of aerobic threshold and more closer towards steady state. And spending more time there really helps a lot, and it can really broaden that base even further and contribute to lower heart rate. Not as much as fast running, granted, but it can have some contribution to lowering heart rate at faster paces.
Awesome. And so right now, currently, by the way, guys, MK is a coach. He's got coaching services. You slide into those DMs, find him on Instagram if you are looking for a coach. When you coach runners, MK, and they come to you with various goals. Sometimes it's just to be active. Sometimes it's like, hey, I've signed up for this race and I need a little bit structure. And I just made a video about getting faster versus marathon training. So someone may come to you and say, hey, I don't have a race on the calendar. I just want to get faster. How would you approach both of those runners? Is there a difference between getting faster versus training for a race?
Oh, wow. You know what? I really wish I would run into someone who was looking for a coach that isn't preparing for a race. Typically what happens is somebody has a goal in mind and then they're looking to train because of that goal. Not to say that making running a part of a daily lifestyle. I think that is the ultimate goal. And that's how I ran for many years. I ran for several years and having never have raced ever since that first 100K. But yeah, I think that's a great way to be healthy, to be happy, to connect with nature, connect with self. It's a great way to do it. I feel like I have a lot of experience in that area. But not a lot of people approach me because of that. A lot of people approach me because they have a very specific goal in mind, a specific race in mind, and they definitely want to get faster through marathon training. And a lot of midlifers, I just want to say, get their 5K and 10K PBs while marathon training. So actually they get faster while they're marathon training. So I'd say there really isn't much of a difference for those people. But if an athlete hits a plateau, focusing on getting faster through periodization can really help that runner become a better marathoner for sure. If somebody doesn't have a race in mind, they're kind of a little bit stagnant and they want to shake things up a bit, then maybe going through a periodization of building up speed, building up running economy is a good way to spend that time in between builds or in between a concrete goal.
Okay, awesome. So then I think I have a couple of questions. Number one, let's say a midlifer hypothetically comes to you and says, hey, I've signed up for this race. Will you coach me towards this? My goal is a 3:30 marathon. And
Okay.
so you guys are running, we're 5-6 weeks into, say, an 18-week block. The fitness levels up a little bit. You notice the paces, the easy paces are dropping. They're able to run marathon pace a little quicker than the 8 minutes or whatever would equal a 3:30. Do you, as a coach and as a runner, do y'all adjust the goal time to something a little bit more aggressive, or is it just, hey, that's a byproduct of all this training, but let's just hit this first goal and then worry about the second goal later?
Well, that really depends on when in the training build that this hypothetical athlete is performing beyond expectations. That usually happens at the beginning because typically an athlete's pretty being modest if that does happen. And so we typically make that adjustment really early on, like during the base build, during the endurance phase. It's very clear that by looking at easy pace and the heart rate during easy pace that maybe we should reach for a little bit more of a reach goal. But usually we stick with the plan later on in a build because I've never really experienced anyone who suddenly increases their fitness beyond expectations, especially after an established kind of endurance mesocycle. But yeah, I see really great success. I see athletes feeling really great about particular workouts. But my workouts that I write for athletes typically are pretty intense. They're pretty heavy on the heavier side, and so the athletes who I coach are pretty satisfied if they can just get through one of the workouts because I like to build on fatigue. I like to establish as much simulation of race day environment as possible. So that means building in workouts during the week and then getting to the weekend on heavy and tired legs, and then not pushing it to the point where you go past the brink and into injury, but pushing it to the point where you can spend a little bit more time feeling what it feels like towards the middle or towards the end of a marathon race. And I think that kind of mental training is really key for being successful at a marathon race. I've seen so many people I don't know, maybe not step off the course, but kind of take their foot off the gas at a race. But then the next day they're not super sore or they're not kind of bedridden or they're not injured or anything like that. So I think there is a giant mental aspect to marathoning, and you can't simulate a whole marathon. You can't run 26 miles every weekend. But you can get close to what it feels like to have that amount of enormous pressure while you're out on a run. So, and in order to simulate that, you have to develop some fatigue during the week and then get out and then try to simulate certain aspects of the marathon race on the weekend.
Okay, so takeaways: building mental toughness, not while you're going to bed pretending that you're in the last 10K, giving yourself mantras, but actually getting out there and practicing making yourself uncomfortable. And none of your athletes come to you looking for extra credit. Is my takeaway. There's enough on the plate.
They're all a little bit nervous about the next email that comes for the next week. Usually, I wonder what it's going to be like next week. But like I typically segment into mesocycles. So the first mesocycle being more endurance based, and then it's stacking on top of every mesocycle. So on top of that endurance mesocycle, I put on threshold. And then the next step is on top of that threshold to stack on VO2 max. And then the last step is to simulate race day environment. And then, so in the last 4 weeks, we start doing workouts on Sundays. When up until then, Sundays are just easy runs with some marathon pace. But we mix in workouts so that we really simulate what it feels like in the last 10K of the marathon.
You're doing the one variable at a time stacked on top. Okay, so it sounds very responsible. Shades of Jack Daniels there. I like that. So let me ask then, so you guys are in a cycle. You and the kids are training for CIM. So can you take me because my mind really, I was going to ask about periodization, so this is perfect. My mind mentally likes concrete examples so I can start to picture it and see how it works. Because even the word periodization, for example, some people say, yeah, I periodize my training. Tuesday I do this and Thursday I do that. And they mean it like within a week. And some people say, oh, yeah, I periodize. I do 2 weeks of easy running and then I go right into my training cycle. And that's my base phase is 2 weeks. And so, my understanding is that it's a process that takes place over the course of the year. So like a spring of speed, a summer of speed, and then, a fall marathon block or whatever it may be. So what does that periodization mean for you? And then what does it look like in the real world? Can you take me from the marathon you guys did before, I think it was the Ventura Marathon, to CIM?
Sure. I think you hit the nail right on the head. You can definitely look at microcycles within 1 week, making sure that you're running at the right volume and the right intensity within that week. So looking at a period of 1 week or a microcycle is pretty important still. And then you can look at mesocycles, like I mentioned before, within a block and focusing on different aspects like endurance, threshold, or VO2 max. Like, for example, we put VO2 max in as the final mesocycle because it usually takes only between 6 and 10 weeks to plateau for VO2 max. So kind of making the most out of the limited time that we have as distance runners that live a normal life. And then we look at macro cycles for entire seasons, focusing on building toward a specific seasonal goal, like for in our case, marathons. So for the kids, they had their last spring marathon in April, after which they had a recovery period about 10 days. And during those 10 days, no workouts, just jogging between 5 and 10 miles every day. And they went through a base build of 5 weeks of running below aerobic threshold at around 70 miles per week. No workouts. They were taken off that base build when they were able to do 3 10-mile runs at aerobic threshold within 1 week. So it doesn't sound like much. It's not very intense, but just grinding out like aerobic runs 10 miles at a time is kind of hard mentally. So it's more of a mental test than anything. But once the kids were able to do that, like 3 of those within 1 week, then they graduate out of the base build. And then once they got their base back after their spring marathon, the kids went into a 14-week summer of speed macro cycle to establish a new top-end speed and new training paces for a faster marathon. And so like it really is, that really is the governor. If you want to get faster, you have to get faster, right? You have to be faster top end. And then that leaves room underneath to establish all of the other paces that you can function at. So you have to kind of focus on that speed if you want to graduate to that next level, that new PB, that new layer of performance. So we broke down the 14 weeks into 2 mesocycles. The first was a speed mesocycle, focusing on anaerobic power, lots of speed reps, 100s, 200s, 300s, and 400s, plenty of rest in between, just focus on getting super, super fast. Then we closed out the summer of speed with a 5K prep mesocycle and plenty of VO2 max intervals, 600s, 800s, 1Ks, 1200s, with very limited recovery in between those intervals. And then as that mesocycle progressed, that recovery period decreased as time went on. And we averaged around 75 miles per week for that. Then after the kids raced their fast 5Ks, we went back to base build to bump up the mileage to 85 miles per week before we started a new marathon training block. And of course, this new block, we had brand new training paces, new easy, new marathon, new threshold, and new VO2 max, and obviously a new marathon goal.
Awesome. And does that include, MK, does that include you? Did you run a 5K? Did you get faster? Did you notch up in fitness a little bit going into this marathon block?
I did not, because during this time I'm coaching. I only coach in person my children, but online I coach many people all over the United States and Canada. But in person, I coach Cole, Haven, and Evan, and they're all at different abilities. Not so much Cole. Cole just needs kind of a governor. He runs a little bit too hard sometimes, but Haven and Evan need more of a training partner or a pacer. And so Cole does a lot of pace work for Evan, and then I do a lot of pace work for Haven. So I have to do kind of a mixture of coaching, training, pacing, and training for myself. So yeah, like during this summer of speed, I would say like I got kind of close to, I was definitely more fit than I was before the summer, because I had a pretty terrible injury that I experienced during the spring. So I was out most of the spring, but I was able to get a lot of fitness back, and I'm super happy about that. I'm very happy that I'm able to kind of run with the kids now again and do the workouts with them. And now I can help more than just Haven. I can help out Cole and Evan as well.
Yeah, and let's just let everybody know you are also camera operator throughout all of this too. So, we're running with an extra 7.8 ounces or however long how much a GoPro selfie stick is. So it's crazy because
Cole just started working for me a few months ago, and he does a little bit of camera work now. It's amazing how much his heart rate goes up by carrying the camera. And I don't think it's so much because it weighs a lot. But when you're when you're just holding the camera, it's not a big deal. But when you're shooting, it really takes a lot out of you. Like you can't do a normal arm swing. You have to kind of your center line is disrupted. You're looking over to the side a lot, and your arms moving out to the side, and it's more stationary. And then Cole really, really hates getting footage on a run. So yeah, that role is usually left for me to do. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, and it's also like the mental energy I feel too, because I'm like, oh, I better get some B-roll while I'm out here running this race. And then I'm like getting people and I'm doing stuff, and it's kind of like, so for Houston, my PR, it was just like, okay, no GoPro. I'm just going to focus on running, but I've certainly run some fast races with it, but it is a distraction. And I know like when I film, even when I'm running easy, like I start to pick up the pace a little bit inherently, just
right
excitement or whatever. I don't know. So
yeah, pace control is hard too. Yeah. And when I never, like, I have some other friends who make really great content, like my friend Alvin, and he asked me for a lot of advice on his last couple races. But for his last one, I told him, like, hey, man, just you got to ditch the camera. You cannot run 250 with the camera. You know, he had gone through just an awesome training build and, you know, all of that carrying his camera. But in the end, 26 miles is different. And if you want to run 250, you have to be in 245 shape. You know, like to run, you need to be 5 minutes faster.
Let me ask then, so have you run your fastest marathon? You think you're going to dip under that 250?
I don't think I've run my fastest marathon.
Yeah.
I think that fast marathons are below 240 to be honest. That's when the mechanics change a little bit. That's when you're not jogging so much. Like both feet are off the ground now. You're running more. So I say that anything north of 240 is really feasible for any hobby runner. It doesn't mean that it's easy. It also means that you have to like invest a lot into it. But also I have to say that racing as fast as possible is like my 27th priority. My midlife friends and I, we just want to continue enjoying marathons and continue challenging ourselves without leaving a part of our souls and our lives out on the race course. We want to continue racing well into our silver years. My highest priorities are to have all my athletes race as fast as possible and not me. I love being inspired by them and watching them crush marathons, especially Evan, Haven, and Cole, and even you, Andrew. I love watching you guys just crush, and it's just so motivating and inspiring to see others do well.
Awesome. Well, thanks. Yeah, I'm going to have to, I don't know what age the silver years begin, but you got to let me know so I can change the name of the channel. So for MK, say hypothetically MK wants to get you, since you haven't run your fastest marathon, you're going to squeeze a little bit more out of there. What levers or levers are left to pull for you? Or is it just a matter of consistency, volume over time?
Yeah, I think that, and you know, at some point, Evan is not going to need a chaperone on the marathon course anymore. Until then, I need to kind of maintain some fitness to keep up with her. But once she's good to race solo, I'll gladly take on a full-time coaching role instead of a part-time coach, part-time training partner / pacer role. And maybe instead of like trying to be fit all year round, maybe be a little bit more strategic in training, take a little bit more time to recover and recuperate, rest my body a little bit, and then try to hit it a little bit harder for some faster marathons. So we'll see how that goes. But for now, the main focus is to try to maintain this fitness so that I can run alongside Evan and document her journey on her way to the 28 Olympic trials for the marathon in LA.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. We'll touch on that in a little bit, but we do want to switch to coaching here.
Okay.
So I will say for anyone who's listening, I watch your videos. You put out a daily vlog on YouTube, AllHeartRC. This is like my daily vitamins. I watch them in the morning as I get ready and I go. And what I like about it is I'm following along on the journey with Haven, with Cole, with Evan. You offer a lot of advice and just what y'all are doing, stuff that's relevant. And you just had a video recently talking about the Tando Race Predictor, which I'm a huge fan of, CR plots. And then I know you've referenced the VDOT calculator as well. And so as a coach, how do you use these tools to help your runners set the goal? Do you ever have to like tell your runner, hey, that's pretty ambitious. What I'm seeing on paper doesn't match there. I think we're going to have to like go out and smash a 5K and then kind of see where we're at and recalibrate. Or how do you, there's a lot of questions, but how do you use those tools?
Well, I typically at the very beginning, just because, especially when we're starting a build with plenty of time, there's either a base build built in or an endurance mesocycle at the beginning of a marathon build, there's plenty of time for everyone to kind of get on the same page. And I'm usually very open to any kind of goal. And let's try it out. Let's see what easy pace feels like for that goal. I usually let the athlete make that decision on their own. Like, oh, maybe not. But typically, more times than not, 99% of the time, athletes are very modest, and I'm the one that usually kind of pushes for a loftier goal. Based on that goal, whatever goal that we end up agreeing on. Typically, we punch out some training paces using VDOT calculator. You can use McMillan calculator. They're all like relatively similar. Using those calculators to get training paces. So training paces for easy, training pace for marathon, training pace for threshold, and training pace for VO2 max and speed reps. The part that kind of Tanda comes in is closer towards the end of all of that tough work that an athlete puts into their training build, and to get a sense for where they stand as far as what that work translates into as far as a finish time in the marathon. But I don't tend to take a look at Tanda too much, because the training plan is written with paces and volume in mind. The idea that fast paces with lower volume can end in a 3-hour marathon, and slower paces with high volume can end in a three-hour marathon. And that's the principle that statistically that Tanda is based on. And that's typically what I do for my athletes. I don't build training programs based on the ideology of this is the optimal training plan. I write training plans based on real world situations that my athletes can handle. So if my athlete can only run 40 miles a week, then I take into account how old that athlete is, how healthy that athlete is, how much experience that athlete has in the past. And then if things can align, then I can prescribe or write a program that has a little bit paces on the faster side and with less mileage, just because the work schedule, the life schedule, the family schedule does not allow more training time. And on the opposite end of the token, I might have an athlete who is retired and has plenty of time, maybe is a little bit in their years and much more of a mature runner. And then I'll write a program with much slower paces, but a lot more volume. And so it's really customized, mostly based on schedule and previous experience than anything. And that typically aligns with objectives, that typically aligns with a specific number or a marathon goal that athlete's looking for. And it's usually not really hard to converge on that between coach and athlete.
Okay, sweet. And as a coach, do they have apps, or how do you figure out miles to kilometers for your metric friends? Do you
I force them into Imperial.
As
it's
you
not
should.
a democracy.
That's part of the tax, It's
Absolutely.
good. All right, sweet. So then I would say, I feel like someone who's been running for a really long time, not like a really, really long time, because you're so old and I'm so old. I'm just kidding. What I would say, like, you've seen a lot, you've got a lot of experience as a coach. You get some vision into other people's running life because they're coming to you and saying, this is what I've been doing, this is how I train, and this is that. And then, you've got your own experience, which you learn from as well. What would you say are like that you've seen a couple of common training mistakes that you've seen?
The most common mistake I see, especially like on Strava or on YouTube videos, are unintentional workouts. There's no scope and sequence. There's plenty of comprehensiveness, but no coherence. For example, I'll see someone do a threshold workout each week for several weeks, but there's no progression. There's no added stressor, and there's no improvement. But I get it. You feel like you're doing work, and you feel kind of a sense of self-satisfaction for doing something kind of hard or what people perceive as hard. I don't know, like 5 by 1 mile at 6:05, 6:10 pace per mile, something like that. But then that's just repeated, and then that's repeated in the next marathon build. And it's great, and you feel pretty dogged afterwards, and you feel kind of a sense of achievement or accomplishment because you did something kind of hard. But in order to improve, you need to add a stress, not just stress. You can't just be stressed. You have to add additional stress, and then that additional stress has to come linearly over time. It has to come consistently over time, and then it has to be built on top of and on top of. And that's the really hard thing to do, right? Because it's hard. It's easy to perform like in like a really tough workout, but to do that week after week, that's a big ask. I think in contrast, I also see plenty of progression. Like I see a nice linear curve of added stress, faster paces, more intervals, etc., on top of a nice linear curve of added volume. And especially for midlifers, this is a recipe for injury. If you want to increase mileage, you got to do it during a base build. Do it when things are consistent. Increase the mileage without adding intensity. And if you want to increase intensity, then do it while keeping the mileage consistent. So like people who are at 60 miles a week, and then the next week they're at 63, and the next week they're at 66, and they're just increasing just a little. It's okay, I'll just do a little bit more every week, and that's not good while you're increasing the intensity, increasing the number of reps, increasing the speed at the same time. Go hard and fast, but don't add more weekly volume. Like keep that the same. So use the base build to increase your volume, get it up to where you want to train at, and then train at that volume is my best advice, especially for midlifers.
Okay, great. And you said earlier you guys were sitting at 70, and it was like 85 or 80. Like this is the range of mileage that you are running. Is that determined by the set goal times? This is going to be kind of the required mileage that you'll be required to run in order to hit your goals?
Yes, definitely that's a big factor. I'd love for them for that goal time. I'd love for them to be at 95 miles, but they're just not there in their own individual progression, in their own individual distance running journeys. They're not there yet, and rather than forcing it, I'd rather let them train at their comfortable range. And it's not optimal to run, I think, in the 250 finishing time range. It's not quite optimal, but it is possible, and especially for their paces, it's still possible. And understanding that, for example, Evan is very much of a strength runner. She does really, really well at aerobic threshold. She does really well at lactate threshold, like LT1, really, really well. She can do that for hours. So like, I think that for her, running up to 85 miles per week, and then during a marathon build, maintaining at around 80 miles per week, gives her a good chance of landing somewhere around 250.
Yeah, and I've always gotten excited and not envious when I see people running 10, 20 more miles, 30 more miles a week. Scullian's like, I'm only running 90, and some people are running 100, 110. It's like, those are levers that I haven't pulled yet that I know. It's like, wow, I'm already this fast and I haven't even pulled those yet. I'm going to graduate to those eventually. So I'm just sitting in right now in the 70 to 80, and it's like, that's where I'm at, and I'm getting faster. So to me, I feel like it's pretty exciting. And I think being patient is a big part of it. So
for sure.
Definitely gonna have to be a part of the approach for Evan and Cole, as they're so young. They got no other choice. They can't be running 206 quite yet. As teenagers. So we'll switch to Wolverine and Psylocke there. Like how are they doing in this build? How do you feel about their training going into CIM? I know it's quite a ways away still.
Cole is absolutely crushing it. Like, I think his fitness app is showing him at a race prediction of 250 already, and we're 16, 17 weeks out from CIM. So and usually it doesn't go down to close to the expected race finish time until I would say like 6 weeks, 7 weeks out from race day. So for him, that's giant. He really took advantage of the Summer of Speed season of speed upgrade. He's feeling it in all the workouts. Like he's just on easy runs, his heart rate is just so super low, and that's not the key. Having low heart rate is not the key. The key is having low heart rate and then having the ability to increase your heart rate when you want it. So then he can just step on the track and get his heart rate above 180 within a few minutes by running fast and hard and then maintaining that through extended efforts. And so his range is what is kind of high value, right? And having that range has really opened up new doors for him. Like he's definitely going to go to CIM and run in the mid 240s somewhere. I'm sure he can do that. It's just that he has obligations to pace Evan and things like that. But we'll let him go in the second half of that race. Evan had a pretty tough Summer of Speed macro cycle and didn't really. She had a little bit of trouble making that mental switch, kind of accepting the discomfort. I think physically, all of her physical systems were like firing really, really well. She didn't even go like super high heart rate on a lot of the workouts. It's just kind of a mental block. But she was able to kind of fight through that towards the end of the summer and was able to kind of leverage that. And so now she's just kind of reaping the rewards of that good work towards the end of the summer. So she's really nailing really hard threshold efforts now. Looks like she's back on track to finishing somewhere in the 250, low 250 or under. And then her fitness app is tracking her at around 252 right now for marathon finish. So I think that she's in a really good place right now for CIM. The goal is to run 250 or better. And I think she has a really, really good shot at getting that done.
Okay. Awesome. And then you also have Haven coming up on a sub-3 attempt. That one's a little sooner, right?
That's going to be at Long Beach in October. So she's doing the training for a 3-hour marathon, and we'll see how that goes. Haven is a little bit on and off, and but we'll just have to see if she can get a few more successful long runs in, and if she can have more than half of her weekday runs be of a little bit higher quality, I think that she has a really good chance. She's very talented, physically really, really talented, but like I mentioned before, long distance running is a tough mental game. And that means not just on race day, but just going out every day and doing the training and getting out on the road and trying to stay positive when your body and the environment is screaming at you to not be positive. You know about that, like running in Texas in that just terrible heat. But yeah, it's a tough mental game, and but she's learning how to play that game, and she's learning how to be a stronger person and a better person as a result. So I'm really proud of her for that.
That's awesome. Well, I would tell you, as a viewer, it is really one of the things I get out of it, not just as a runner and as a dad. And actually, my kids, they said, hey, wake me up tomorrow when you go to the track, Dad. I want to come with you. I want to run. For the first time, in my middle child, he actually framed it like this. He was asking in 4th grade. He said, you're a little too young. When you get in middle school, when you get to 6th grade, you can come with me and you can come run. But you need your sleep, you need to grow, whatever. And he was like, remember you said that? And he goes, well, guess what? I'm in 6th grade now. So I was like, okay. So I woke him up. They're ready to go. We went out to the track, and he would do a 400 and sit one out on my easy warm up, and he'd do another 400.
Awesome.
So, but
That's
the
awesome.
passion that the kids have for running, you could tell they've been bit by the bug. It's very inspiring to see and relatable in a way that if you've gotten into running and you've become a runner, I think you can kind of really relate to, you know, it makes me think like, it's like, oh, what if I started running when I was younger, you know? And I'm glad I didn't, because I did a bunch of creative stuff like this, or else I wouldn't be here doing like YouTube things. And, you know, I'm really grateful to start at this place in my life, but it's great to be invested in other people's journey. Sometimes I think I'm more invested in other people's journey than my own, you know, and I'm really rooting for them. So I do want to say, I want to end this, because I've got to go get my oldest from early release here in a second, you know, and doing the juggle and everything, that it's so refreshing to see everything that you're doing, and the kids putting in the work, not just the running. It's like they've got a full life too, school, you got work. I mean, it's a lot. And on top of that, sprinkling in some YouTube is like the lowest on the totem pole. It does require a lot of work. I'm not a fan of editing.
I hear you. I hear
Yeah,
you.
it's a lot of stuff. So I greatly appreciate everything that you're doing over there. I will put all the links in the description below. And
Thanks so much.
yeah, thanks for taking the time to talk to me today. So do you want any parting words?
I appreciate you, Andrew, so much. I'm a YouTuber and a run coach, but ironically, I don't watch a lot of running on YouTube, and it's kind of strange. But I think I pretty much just watch you and Eric and Kofuzi, and but yeah, like I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a combination of you focusing on this midlife aspect, or where you are in your running journey, and or whether it's the gags and the smart lines, but
Cringy jokes.
I really appreciate you so much. You have been a big inspiration for me personally, and as well for my kids. They really enjoy your content and your interactions online, and we appreciate you so much, Andrew. Thank you so much.
Thank you, MK. I'll see you tomorrow. You won't see me tomorrow, but I'll definitely see you on my long run.